Yeah, so if we go back like for a minute, what I think this one should be is more like it to me at least. I think it should be like more like an interview. Like I should be like asking you about like home games, like why you want to make it, stuff like that. Um, but I'm definitely cool if you don't want to do it that way, and
Yep.
we kind of free flow it a little bit more, or we make it less of like an interview and more of just like a flowing conversation. Since in theory I know as much about like the end goal of home games as you do. So it
Yeah.
doesn't need to be like I'm asking and you're telling, but
Right.
that's my idea.
Uh, yeah, I mean, I kind of like that idea as an introduction to be like, what's the context? Like, why are we doing this? And I guess
Mm-hmm.
it's like, I would like to add in the fact that, sorry, I'm talking slow because I keep hearing myself and it freaks me out. I like the idea of opening it up with some sort of background or context or whatever about the fact that you wanted to do a podcast for years and you were like, oh, I think we're interesting and, you know,
I do.
people would like to hear us and all that kind of stuff, which, I mean, like, I've always kind of generally disagreed. I think it's like we're not that
Hard to
interesting.
we're not interesting.
Yeah, I mean, like, people in general are interesting, and it's like, who the fuck am I to make a podcast? And so eventually it was like, okay, well, we have something to talk about, and that's home games, but I would like to still have this general idea of a podcast of like, you know, like I love the Giant Bombcast, and their whole thing is like, yeah, we're a video game podcast, but it's 3.5 hours, and in the early days it was them just reviewing energy drinks and shit like that, and it was like there's no gaming thing for like 80% of the podcast, but it's about gaming. So I guess if we could take that approach to this, but it's still centered around home games, like updates with home games, the state of home games, you know, all that kind of stuff. But in general, it's just talking about like, you know, whatever we normally talk about.
Butts, lots of butt talk.
Yeah, butt talk. We should just call the podcast that.
Butt talk.
Yeah,
I
it'd
think
be
that,
fun.
I don't think they're like Cake Watch. Just call it Cake Watch.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if that'll fly.
Review celebrity butts.
I also looked up, like, I guess this will be a fun thing to talk about too, is like the name of this podcast. Because like we had floated the idea of patch notes, just because, you know, that's like you release patch notes with releases of stuff, and home games is supposed to be, I mean, it's supposed to be software, so I guess we should just stick to that whole kind of vibe. Yeah, we claim that home games is software, so.
Hard implication there. No proof.
I don't want to put ourselves in a box here, but I'm thinking that might be a good idea.
You know, it's just free flowing. You know, you want to put a label on it. You know.
Yeah, one day it's like a marble sculpture. The next day we're writing Java. It's like, yeah, you know, it's artsy.
Okay, all right, I can do that.
Yeah, I mean, like the interview thing might be useful. And again, this is just a loose conversation, so I don't want it to be like, so Joseph, the stranger I'm meeting today, tell me about yourself. Like, for some background, you and I have been friends for a very long time and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, the way I was like thinking we started off was just be like, hey man, listen, like this like podcast called Patch Notes. This is like the pilot episode. We're kind of gonna cover like what home games is, like why we're doing it, and then but we're gonna start off with like just talking about like who we are and stuff like that. And so I was probably just gonna be like, this is Joseph. He's a handsome man. I've known him so many years, like literally so many years. It's ridiculous. Yeah, you know, we're just two idiots hanging out.
That's the name of the podcast.
Two idiots hanging out. Oh yeah, I'm hella brown. Oh wait, is this all going in? Did we start already?
Again, I could edit out whatever. We're just talking.
Okay. I think if we're gonna come up with like subtitles, like episode 1, like patch notes, episode 0, two idiots hanging out, I think that's like a good like subtitle.
Yeah, yeah, I like that. So, I mean, at this point, it seems like patch notes is the name, right? Like,
yeah, I like patch notes.
And so, episode 0, just yeah, whatever. Yeah, I like it.
Yeah, I like it. Yeah, it's episode 0 because like it's not it's not polished. We had a lot of hard times getting things set up and everything, but we're in rock and roll. All right, so
for an hour and 20 minutes watching me get this fucking audio set up and getting frustrated.
No, dude, it was probably a good time because like I really needed to eat. I hadn't eaten breakfast yet. But yeah, I kind of want to open on this story because it's kind of ridiculous. But like, so I got a letter from the like HOA. They were just like, hey man, listen, you got too much plants in your front yard. Can you please take care of that? It's like, all right, cool. I had so many plants out there though. I didn't realize was that it's like overgrown. It's like it was crazy. There was just there's like weeds that were as tall as I am, and then just some random flowers took root in the soil out there, and it just grew into this huge bush. Like it's bigger than my car. Like that bush was bigger than my car, like around and tall too. So I spent from like 10 a.m. until like 1:45 today just cutting down plants, just like just cutting, like pulling them out from the roots, just trying to get it under order, because I guess if you don't comply within a certain time, they fine you. But then they don't use that fine to like take care of your front yard. They just take your money.
Yeah, but what do they do if you don't pay that? Like, they're not the government.
I don't know,
just some
actually.
people.
Do you think, I don't know, maybe they can affect your mortgage or something.
But that's already set. Like, you paid for your house, and it's a bank. Like, if I own that house, what can they do to me?
I don't know. That's a good question. I should email them. No.
Not that I wouldn't do what you're asking to do, but who the fuck are you, you know?
Yeah, right? Like, what are you going to do? Come to my house, show up, we'll talk it out or something. No, I actually am curious what's going to happen, because I definitely didn't finish out there because it just got too hot. Like around like 1:45, I was like, I was like not even sweating anymore. That's how hot it was. So I just came back inside and I was like, yeah, you know what? I'm not going to deal with this now. I'll finish tomorrow or something. But we have Monday off, so whatever.
Yeah.
I have Monday to do it too.
Yeah. I'm sorry. Senovia's, she asked for my feedback on a fanny pack.
Oh, what kind?
It's interesting. It's not quite like a regular fanny pack. It's like a purse / belt, and it's not over the shoulder, it's around the waist, so it's like a belt in that way, but it's not like a fanny pack, because a fanny pack is like lower. I could show you the picture on the thing. She's got it on the thing there.
It's like a waist purse.
Yeah, we were calling it a fanny purse on the phone.
Yeah,
but fanny purse sounds like fucking, I don't know, it sounds illegal.
Fanny purse?
Yeah, like what are you keeping in that fanny purse? Like only illicit things belong.
Do you know that the way you said that really reminded me of like an old hip hop song, but I don't remember what that song was. I think it's Candy Shop by somebody I don't know.
50 Cent.
Yeah, because the way he said like candy shop, the way you said fanny purse.
Show me what's in the fanny purse. Yeah, I can see it.
Honestly, I don't even remember that song very well. I don't know why that really like popped into my head.
Well, 50 Cent inspires a lot of what we do every day.
Yeah.
We don't even know it.
Yeah, you know, before I get out of bed, the first thing I do is I ask myself, what would 50 do? You know, and if he wouldn't get out of bed, I wouldn't either.
Damn, I want that tattooed on me. What would 50 do?
What would 50 do?
He would just do, like, I don't know, he's an asshole these days. He's just super aggressive and rude and rich, and so he can do whatever the fuck he wants.
Do you think he was always aggressive and rude, but without being rich, and so he just kind of like toned it down? And then when he became rich, he was like, I'm going to let out like the evil inside me. Just bully everyone.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I would do the same thing. Like, Elon Musk, for example, is just super fucking rich, and so he just goes on Twitter and posts insane shit, and then laughs at people freaking out about it. Like 50 Cent
that is
the same
true.
Thing.
You're right. He does. He just like made his own rap song, and then just like it could be me, it could not be me. You don't know.
Yeah, I showed that song to yeah, I showed that song to Senovia.
You already ruined it. You were like, we're not gonna say her name. Immediately, you said her name like 5 times.
I showed that song to the lady. I'll just
go
in
there
like shitty overdub it, just the lady.
Yeah. Like,
whatever.
I think, you know how was it, like Epic Mealtime used to do the crow noise over all the swear words?
Oh yeah.
You can do that. Just a nice callback.
A callback to something we never did. It's just
Well, it's a callback in like a really old YouTube series. Used to do that.
That's nuts. That it's like you have the idea of a really old YouTube series. You know?
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know. I was thinking the other day that there's like ancient YouTube videos of like Gradual Report was one of the channels I used to watch, and it's like that doesn't even exist anymore, or maybe it does. Who fucking cares? That's the point. But it's like YouTube has old YouTube, and there's like kids today who don't know about like old YouTube channels. It's super weird. I don't know.
It's kind of cool though. It's like old TV shows.
Yeah.
And like the weird part about it is that at some point those channels are going to disappear and it'll be gone forever. Like in theory.
I saw this thing on Reddit the other day. I don't know if it's true or not, but it was just like a picture of a woman and then with some fake backstory probably. But it was like this lady from 1972 to when she died in 2012, like recorded everything that she watched on VHS. And as a result, she has the most complete collection of recorded television in that time, because like the people producing that content didn't save everything like that. And so that stuff is just lost to time. And so YouTube doesn't really have that unless, I mean, I don't believe they'd really delete anything. So they probably have everything on YouTube from forever.
Well, I mean, even if YouTube has it, if no one else can get to it, like besides internal YouTube staff, and in theory, like, I mean, it does exist, but no one can get. I mean, that's like Schrodinger's cat, kind of, in that at the same time it exists because it's on the internet and it's stored in some database somewhere, and they probably don't hard delete out of that. They probably just like set some del bit or like some hidden thing, like just don't show this thing.
What are you, a fucking programmer?
Oh, you know, they probably like soft delete it, right? But it like because no one can get to it, no one's gonna see it again, and at some point, no one's gonna remember about it anymore. Like no one will remember that video used to exist. So even if they did release it again, like who would go watch it? You know?
Yeah, but that's not. I guess the point is that like it's either gone or hidden, and I don't know. Like in 100 years, if anyone ever wanted to watch that video from like 2007 on YouTube, the point is that I could. And it's not just something that someone created and it's gone forever and it's literally not recoverable. You just can't get it. And it's not about a company deciding to take the lock off of it or whatever. It's just, does the thing still exist?
I guess it's true. Well, at some point, right, YouTube will run out of the ability to store information and they'll have to cull a little bit, right? Because there's in theory only a finite, right? This kind of gets into the weeds a little bit, right? But because it's a finite set of resources and it takes resources to store information, you know that there's a finite amount of information that could be stored on Earth alone. Like that's assuming we don't like go out in like space and like make an asteroid into our more computers or something, right? So there's a finite amount of information, therefore there's a finite amount of space, and that space needs to be divided up between like, you know, the big companies right now. They would hold on to as much space as they probably could. But right, so then that means it is an even smaller subset of all of the information that could be stored that YouTube is allowed to store. So in theory, at some point, YouTube would need to kill off information. And you don't think they would go back and be like, you know what we're going to do from like 2010 and back, and we're just going to like kill anything that hasn't been watched in like a year or something like that.
Why though? Because if at that point, right, it's 2050 and every day there's 1,000 new people uploading a terabyte individually for each of their videos. It's a terabyte because everything is like 32K, 900 FPS or whatever. The file size of one thing uploaded by one person or whatever on that day is 1,000 times bigger than the average YouTube video 20 years ago. Or 20 years before that. So if like it's this exponentially growing thing of file size, the most important data is what I did yesterday, not 10 years ago. That stuff is like a sliver of my current data usage. And it's not like, oh, you know, the world ran out of hard drives or whatever storage space. And now YouTube's still going. We're all chilling. Like, no, if we run out of storage space, we're all fucked.
Well, no, I mean, we are, but we aren't, because actually I see your point. Well, hold on. So if you go, all right. So if we assume that eventually we're going to run out of space because for some reason we'll be able to get outside resources, right? So we run out of space. You don't think the first thing we would do is should be like, all right, all the old garbage that no one watches anymore or does anything with, they're gone. Like we're just going to delete them. Like old Facebook profiles or whatever, they're just going to delete all of them. Like hard delete, like from the database and everything. Like they're gone. And then they're going to be like, okay, well, sorry, go ahead.
So you go finish.
Well, I was going to say, like, because if no one's going to use it, then that information will be missed. Whereas if they were deleting like future modern information, people might still be using it, like might still be watching those YouTube videos, something like that. All our Vine compilations are going to be gone, Joseph. That's what I'm saying. All right.
I mean, like, what's the value of me today going to Jesus? I can't even finish. Going to delete like a readme.txt. It's 1 kilobyte, 2 kilobytes on my 6 terabyte hard drive. I can delete it, but who cares? Because the problem is my 2 terabyte homework folder. You know?
Yeah, homework. Yeah, no, I see your point, but my argument is that at that point, because you know you'll never need that .txt file, you might as well just get rid of it. Like no one's gonna read that readme because no one knows that it exists anymore. It's like you're probably just gonna drop it.
Yeah, but I mean, in this case, is my time, or is it worth my time? Is it worth getting that 1 kilobyte back to go through and find the file to delete? Like, I mean, there's a resource usage thing in a company saying, well, what data isn't valuable to us, and how do we get the most data that doesn't matter right now, right? Like, the largest amount of space that we can remove that no one will miss. I don't know. It's like, who fucking cares? It's 0.01% of our data usage, and in this time it took me to say this sentence, we've already doubled what that
just was. Well, I guess the way I'm thinking about it is like the grand total sum, right? So like I see your point of if you have like, all right, let's say like 100 gigs, just because it's an easy number and I can work with it. So if 100 gives you space, like 70 of those gigs are modern videos and 30 of those gigs are like old videos.
Sure.
Right? If you drop those 30, you may only be able to fit in like, I don't know, like only a few more modern videos, but there's no reason for you to have held on to those old videos. Like no one's going to go back and watch like vines that help you get through depression or something, like vines that cured my depression from like 2012, right? So you might as well just drop them. And then if you're looking, and if you still are running out of space, then you got to be like, all right, well, now we got to look at, because no one's going to care at that point. Whereas if you're deleting modern things, people are going to be like, hold on, like I'm still watching that, like please don't delete it, right? Or they'll get upset because they're like, well, that's still monetized, like I'm still making money off of that. So I think it'd be easier for them to just delete like the old stuff, even if it doesn't get them like a ton of memory in like comparison to what it would cost them. In comparison to like what a video at the time would go be stored at. Like, I don't know. It's the same issue with like, well, I guess this is like the main issue, isn't it? I was going to say it was the same issue as like when computers were a lot smaller and they couldn't store that much. So you'd write like 4 lines of C and you'd be like, that's it. That's this program. And that was it. It's like punch cards. Like you're eventually going to run out of more punch cards, kind of. I don't know.
I guess I just don't see a world where like YouTube still exists, but we're out of storage, or storage is so limited that it's like they need to even think about that. If that's,
realistically, if we were running out of the material to store things, we're running out of other materials much faster. We would run out of water like way before. I think we'd run out of the like small amounts of material required to like make a hard drive, like a data bank.
Yeah, so, I mean, it's like investing in the stock market. You're like, oh yeah, the stock market can go to zero, and then I'll have no money in the stock market. It's like, yeah, but if the stock market goes to zero, we're super fucked. Like, beyond you not having money for rent or whatever, like, we're dead, you know? Like, that is actually really true. It's like there's no food to buy if that happens. So,
you better hope you have a gun or something.
Yeah, but whatever. If the apocalypse, I've said this to you before, but like if the apocalypse happens, I'm fucking done. I'm not gonna try to save that.
You don't think so? You wouldn't? I would.
It's like City Skylines. You know, you have a save point, and then you make a drastic change, the city's fucked. You've raised taxes to like 30%. Everyone left. No one wants to come back. Your roads are shit. You alt F4 that shit. You don't try to fix it.
You're like, the city is dead. This is a dead end. There's like possible future. It's not going to work out.
Yeah, like what's the best possible outcome of this? Like we all
best outcome is you
repopulate
come
from
back,
like
you pull
12
it back.
people, and we're all a
Yeah,
bunch
you-
of fucking inbreds that had like this horrible disaster, but we're pushing through. Like no, we're done.
Yeah, I mean, it is hard. So, like, the idea is, at some point, you better have like a doctor or something, like somebody who understands like genetics, because otherwise, you're definitely boned, right? Because if you don't understand like small population, like genetic drift and stuff like that, you're boned. Like, there's just no way, like that bottleneck, you just won't be able to get by it. I think you need 30 breeding pairs or something like that, or something in order to retain genetic diversity.
And I don't know if you've seen Midsummer, but they have to bring in new people to breed because it's such a small group or whatever, and it's like, movie's fucking crazy, and I don't want Midsummer.
Wait, what movie?
To happen. Midsummer?
I haven't seen it. No.
I don't. You're not that into horror movies, are you?
No, I actually don't really enjoy horror movies.
Yeah. So, don't. Because I didn't even really like it. It's like a good movie. I just didn't enjoy it, I guess.
Well, okay, well, like, the spoiler alert. But go ahead and, like, what's the premise of this movie? Because what? Like, they bring in breeding pairs? Like,
Yeah,
what?
welcome to the Home Games podcast.
Hold on. Well, sorry. We'll get to the home games part, but I'm really confused because your lead-in was just, like, it was really, like, on topic, but so specific.
It's just in my head because I saw this movie like 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
The premise is I honestly don't. I'm like an idiot, so anybody hearing my opinion on a movie, just understand that I like fucking Rush Hour and stuff like that. You know, like I'm not a smart.
Likes Rush Hour.
Well, I think everybody should like Rush Hour, but whatever. Anyway, it's like this story of this couple, and there's a girl, and she has this kind of traumatic shit happening, and meanwhile, the dude and his friends are planning this trip to Sweden, I think. And for this festival, and there's like a friend in their circle, and he's telling them about their, the festival that this small community has that he's from, and it's a big deal, and all this stuff. And anyway, the couple, the girl basically is like, hey, I want to go on this trip with you and your friends, and because I've had some horrible shit happen in my life, and I just need to this is good for me. And the dude is like, well, we were kind of going by ourselves, and I kind of want to break up with you, and relationship isn't great. They don't say this with words. This is my interpretation. It kind of happened. Anyway, it's like, this dude wants to break up with her, right? But you can't because her fucking sister just killed her mom, and now this horrible shit. So timing's weird, and you're emotionally fucked. So yeah, come to this trip with me. And then crazy shit happens, and it's like, there's like a murder ritual, and like a breeding ritual, and weird stuff. And the whole movie kind of ends with the girl killing the dude. In the ritual, she becomes the May Queen, I think is what it is. She's like basically the goddess of the festival, and like she's like fucking running shit. She's got like a crown made of flowers. It's like this really weird scene. Meanwhile, they're like sacrificing this dude, and he's like burning in a building that's full of his dead friends, and you're just like, what the fuck is happening? What is this story? What did the traumatic event in the beginning have to do with this story? Like, otherwise, besides just getting her into the festival, and like, what's the significance of her? And maybe I'm just too dumb to understand, and whatever. And whatever. But someone told me it was just basically they saw this interview with the director, and the whole movie's about to be some allegory or metaphor or whatever for a breakup. And I guess the director at the time was going through a bad breakup, and I guess I kind of see that if you're going through the whole thing, and it's just like a shitty relationship that doesn't end well due to people lying to themselves or whatever, right? Like, I get that. Mm-hmm. I just didn't like the movie. I didn't think that was the best way to tell me that story. I was waiting for it to be interesting or whatever, or it was always interesting. Like, it was always different, and there's always something weird happening, but I'm just like, why. I guess I don't know why. And you can tell me in an interview that this was your intention, but that movie wasn't it for me. Like, I didn't get that from that. You know? And it's like,
okay, I got you.
I feel like a dumb guy who doesn't understand art. Someone's like, paint something on a whatever, on a canvas in front of me, and they're like, oh, do you get it? I'm just like, no, not at all. And I don't want to. That's okay.
You don't want to.
No, like, I'll enjoy looking at your cool, like, I'll look at it and visually be interested. But if you tell me it's about, like, poverty or whatever, I'm just like, I don't give a fuck, you know?
You're just here for the pretty colors.
Yeah, because I'm an idiot. I'm a simple idiot.
Two idiots hanging out. What was it?
Two idiots hanging out. That's episode 0.
Two idiots hanging out. It's the episode subtitle. No, okay, that makes sense.
Oh, another
It's
thing.
like a long... So go ahead.
You finish it. Go ahead.
I was going to say there's like a super long winding route to come back to the fact that we're actually 2 engineers. We're doing a podcast on a project that we're working on.
I was going to try to bring it back myself. Okay.
No, what were you going to bring it with? Well, go ahead.
So, well, I was just going to do like a hard break to... back to the home games.
I got you. Don't worry.
No, yeah, so anyway, I think it'd be valuable to talk about like what we think the structure of this should be, because obviously up to this point it's just been us talking about whatever we want, which I guess is valuable. That's kind of what we want this to be. And I think both of our mindset in this. 1 sec.
All right.
Like 2 minutes.
Yeah, no worries. I'll just keep talking about random garbage.
Well, I'll be in here.
Can I be your guest?
Oh, of course. This is episode 0. We also weren't sure if you wanted us to even mention your name, so...
Oh, you can say my name. It's fine.
Okay.
What are you guys talking about?
Our show.
Well, we actually were just talking about a movie called Midsummer that apparently Joseph saw.
Have you seen it?
No, I have no idea. Joseph was like, I don't remember what we were talking about, but Joseph just casually mentions that they had like a weird sex cult thing going on with like bringing people in to breed or something. And I was like, what?
Yeah, that part is really weird. And it lasts for a weirdly long time. It's just a bunch of like, spoilers, it's a bunch of like naked ladies surrounding this other naked lady, like getting fucked. And they're all like, so for like a solid 5 minutes while he's like doing her, it's weird.
Did you like the movie though? Because Joseph gave a super negative review.
Push the button.
When they push his butt.
Oh yeah, and then like I think her mom, the lady who's getting fucked, her mom is also naked, like doing the
What?
and she like, I don't know what. Oh no, an old lady who's also naked is in the room, and then she starts like shoving the guy into the girl, like just grabs his ass and just like shoves him into her.
God, Jesus. Are you guys watching a porn or a movie? Like, hold on a second.
It's weird. It didn't relate to anything either. They were like, and it's porn, and that's it.
Wait, okay. Did you like the movie though? Because Joseph gave like a super negative review. He was like, "It's movie's garbage."
I liked it because it was just weird. That's the point. But he's like, what's the meaning of this? Why do you... It's like, there's no point. It's just weird.
That's exactly how I sound.
Yeah. Also, do you guys have the same chair?
No, super similar, but mine isn't a DX Racer. Mine's just some like a knockoff brand or something.
You
I don't know.
literally have a knockoff of this chair.
Yeah, I think because his is like the official streamer chair or whatever, right?
I mean, I can't... I'm sure there's no difference. It just, this has DX Racer.
DX Racer, yeah. I mean, probably. I don't know. I got this chair as a present for one of my birthdays like a long time ago. It's just like super comfortable.
I'm sorry. No, it's not
No,
a
no, it's
knockoff.
fine.
I'm sorry.
I honestly don't even know. I don't know what brand this is either. I just enjoy the chair a lot because my old chair, I don't know if you ever saw it, but like it was like used to be like an old like executive like leather chair and it just was so beat up because I had it for like 10 years at that point. It was like completely wrecked. Like if you sat down on it, there was no cushion between you and the like thing that holds the chair part up. So you just like sit on metal for like an hour. It's great. I have fantastic butt muscles. Yeah.
This is like the anti-chair.
Yeah, it's like it's great now because this thing is super comfortable. It's super chill.
Yeah.
Like it's just great.
I feel
It
like
also doesn't get too hot.
It's supposed to be like you're in a race car? Is that the point of it? I don't know.
I don't know. I have no. What does Joseph say about this? Because I honestly don't know what the point of this chair is, aside from just like being good for you.
Oh, right. You can't.
I don't know.
I thought you were in this conversation.
Also, you're like screaming into the mic.
I don't know.
No, you're listen. You're fine. You're fine because you're actually like super far away from the mic, so you're at like a normal volume. So you're good.
Oh, right. He's saying that I'm doing just fine.
Okay.
And he wants to know what your opinion is about this chair.
It's fine. It's a chair. It's sturdy. It's nice. I've had it for 3 years and it's still up. So.
There you go.
There you go.
Is this supposed to be a racing chair?
Is this your racing chair?
Yeah, I feel fast when I'm in it.
Okay. Okay, I'm gonna go.
All right. Bye, Senovia.
Bye.
And we can also talk about like just like what a pull request is, maybe. I don't know, because the other thing is I don't know what our viewers would know, right? Like, are they freshmen in college who don't know what a pull request is and only know like Python or Java? Or are they like, we're professional engineers too, and pull request, that makes sense. Like a Git repo, what is that?
Yeah.
So I think so like part of it is just like just kind of like going over, just like, you know, going over some of the like basics and just like talking through some of the problems we ran into as we were making home games and some of the design decisions and stuff like that, as well as just like the more ridiculous stuff. So then that's kind of like how I imagine it, where if we get into like the weeds a little bit of like, okay, we ran into this problem, like this is how we talked it through, then we can be like, okay, so this is like the approach that Joseph took and like why we took that approach, or like this is the approach that Yazeed took and like why we like took this approach, and some of like the other design decisions and stuff like that. At least that's in my head how it works. And then the other thing is to just kind of get a good feel for like the point of home game, like what is home games? I guess we can start with that question. So I'll go ahead and field that question to you.
From my perspective, home games is just something where it's like I had a lot of moments when I was a teenager, like a young teenager, trying to be like, okay, well, I love video games, but I don't know anything about programming, and all of this stuff is intimidating, and I really don't think I could ever learn this stuff or anything like that. So it was just like, wouldn't it be cool if someone that had little to no programming knowledge, like Tynan, for example, our friend who is currently learning how to write code. He'd written MATLAB and stuff before, but like, you know, doesn't have that background. But I think a person like him or anybody really should be able to create something cool, like that they can enjoy with their friends, and they get the kind of reward of creating it themselves, even if it's not enjoyed by other people. If it's like really shitty or anything like that, you can still make it and then learn from there. And we had this experience like a month ago or something like that. We were all, and you and me, we were at a party thing with like 5 people, and it was the perfect scenario. We were all there on our phones, like we want to do something together, but we don't, like, board games are here, but who wants that? And I don't know, it's just like this thing, like we all want to be interacting with each other, but we're not, and how do we, whatever. So we ended up playing Jackbox, which is honestly the inspiration for this whole kind of thing for me, is the fact that anybody without interest in playing video games is suddenly like on their phone playing video games with everyone else in the room. And that's like a magical thing to me, where it's like, oh, you know, the person who's like afraid of an Xbox controller just had to go to this URL and now they're playing trivia games with us. And so I think generalizing those tools to let anybody create something like that for their group, even if it's, like I said earlier, not submitted to the official Home Games game repo, you can still make that and play that with your friends. And in that case, it would have been you or me just hitting, you know, homegames.go on our laptop, and then we're all just playing our stuff.
Right. Yeah. So that, I mean, the reason I kind of like hopped on, one, because we're friends, but 2, I think that's actually a really cool idea, especially come from like Jackbox, because it's like, that's a lot of fun to play with people, even if people who like either terrible at games or just don't ever play, they're always down to play Jackbox. And I feel like if you were also like, hey, let's sit down and like make a game for us, like our group of friends, like what game would we want to play? Like maybe it's maybe it's like a trivia game, maybe it's like an actual game, and so you can make a game, or if other people made games, and also we're going to probably be releasing games as well, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, like, there'll be a lot, in theory, there'll be like a lot of things for you to just pick up and do. So you can just be like, hey, I want to play this game, and then boom, there you go.
Yeah. And about like submitting and creating stuff like that is like another open question for me, because just thinking about the future, like a future version of this where it can generate revenue. Again, I'm not opposed to generating money with this. It's just not the intention.
I think your headset cut out. Oh no, you're good. Sorry.
Okay.
It did cut out, but you're good.
Well, the recording, luckily, is on my machine, so it should be good.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, I'm just thinking about like the future of if someone needs to get paid for creating a game in home games, how do we allocate money, for example, to the correct people? If I make a one-line code change on your game, am I getting paid for it? Like open source and getting paid for running that code, and who's responsible? Like that whole thing is a question to me. So, the way I think about it today is you create a pull request for a game and all of your files are only under source/game/whatever your game is. Maybe it's some config file attributing an author or group or something like that. I really don't know. But as long as you're adding that to the repo and I think it's cool, then it's in the repo. And that's not a good process. And it doesn't scale when there's a lot of people doing that. Because, like, what does it mean to be cool? Like, we have to set coding standards for the repo, and what are those? I have preferences as like an individual, but that's not what all people like. But I don't really care because this is mine. So yeah,
it's like that fine line between like open source, crowd coded versus like private, like single persons writing all the code and everything like that. Even it is a small team. It's like just you and me, so it's easy to maintain code standards right now. But I can definitely see your point of like 10 years from now, if like 100 people were trying to like put code in there, that's gonna you're gonna run over each other very quickly.
Yeah, and I don't. That's kind of like the fun part of this is I really don't know where it's going. Like, I was talking to Senovia this morning, and I was kind of stressed about starting this podcast because essentially it's like starting a business in a way, because like there's like no revenue in this, right? But Home Games is essentially a brand. This podcast is essentially marketing for that brand, even though it's not. You know, it's all fun and it's all me and you doing this side project for fun. But then I take a step back and it's like, I don't know. You realize that this is like something you have to build and maintain, and it's a thing that exists, and if you don't keep it going, it doesn't exist. And that's kind of like a business without the ability to get money.
Yeah. I
don't know. It's interesting.
Well, so like, let's say like it does become super popular, right? So is the idea that it would be monetized or it would never be monetized? So there's either eventually revenue or never revenue, I guess is my question.
Again, my intention is not to make money with this. If it's just a thing and it's like 20 people who love it and, you know, use it, or if it's just me and you who use it and like it with like our friend group, and because like we're gonna build Home Games, like that's the thing, that's the side project, and we just decided to create a project or a podcast about that, or focused on that. And I guess the unknown about what we want to do with this is like the thing that's making me a little weird, because right now I have no plans to make money with this. But if one day I see the opportunity to not make anyone mad and still get people paid for working on this stuff, then that would be great. Like, yeah. Obviously, if it's like I can create an opportunity for someone to be a home games developer, and it's like the console killer is home games because JavaScript destroyed Xbox or whatever, game streaming is a thing now. Stadia is coming out, and maybe that'll be something that proves to people they don't necessarily need like a game console in their home, and they're comfortable just streaming games from a remote thing. And if I can say, hey, here's this thing, just install it yourself, and having that customer base is useful. I don't know. I truly have no idea what the hell I'm doing, and I guess that's what I want to convey, just being as transparent as possible. Because
that makes sense.
In 10 years, if I'm like a money-grubbing asshole, just show me this recording. Be like, you
become 50 Cent.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, that's cool. All right, so I did have like another question. So, shoot, no, I'm spacing out. Oh, maybe we should go over like where home games is at like now, like right now. So
I'm two-factoring authenticating on GitHub, so I'm not on my phone. I'm doing
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's the other thing. It's the GitHub repo. It does exist. You can pull it down and work. You can pull it down, work on it on local. I think it's not private, but I think it's controlled. So I think Joseph needs to approve all pull requests before they get merged in.
Yeah, you could. Yeah. I think anybody could fork it, but that's a good. I don't know if anybody can PR. I'll check on that. But
well, like, because I couldn't even. I don't think I could until you gave me permissions to do that.
I think that's the thing. Yeah, because you need to be a contributor if you can PR. I think.
Yeah.
You're right.
Yeah. So I don't think you can, but we'll figure that out too. Yeah. But I was gonna ask. Shoot.
GitHub
repo. Oh, should we go over like some of the terminology we're using, throwing it around like GitHub, like fork, PR, like all that stuff, or do you think that we're fine just not doing that? We just plow on.
To me, anybody who finds this at least has an interest in looking up that stuff. Like, yeah, for sure, we can maybe explain what we mean every now and then, but at a certain point, we have to establish that like our audience for this is at least willing to infer what we mean and kind of like go with it until they figure it out or look it up,
Yeah.
Because I guess I'm not trying to be like, well, let's talk about the CPU, the central process. Like, I'm not trying to.
Now, when are we going to get to the ALU, the arithmetic logic unit?
Yeah. Exactly.
That's some assembly stuff. Don't worry about it. I still remember. No. So, all right. Let's say like I just want to make a game, right? I want to make a game for home games. Oh, right. So I pull down. What's up?
You said, "Oh, right, state of home games." That's what we're talking about.
Yeah. So where? Oh, sorry. Shoot. I should hold that question. Where are we at with home games? We have our first game. We have the Squisher. We have homegames.link. Mm-hmm. Like a lot of the infrastructure built out, right? If you want to talk about this more.
Sure. I mean, the beauty of the infrastructure is that the only infrastructure is really a homegames.link. Just generally speaking, the thing that we have today is a proof of concept that has a collection of what we've been calling games, but they're really just test interaction app things to test different aspects of what we can do. And so the only real game that we have today is Senovia's idea, because I kept overcomplicating everything and trying to build too much. And so Senovia suggested just starting with a simple card game where we have a deck of cards and players join this thing, and essentially cards are dealt to players, and whoever has the highest card wins. And so from like me at the time, I thought that was way too simple. But it ended up being something kind of interesting to build because it ran into the problem of when you have I'm a little too detailed right now. I'll take a step back in a bit. But the game that we have is we ran into this problem where all this is over a WebSocket, and the previous idea was that all of this is on a shared screen in an arcade type thing, which it was really just a technical limitation because the game state is just broadcasted to every client. So that was very much the like, I don't want to write this code, so this is a feature, or this is like a fun limitation that will make us be creative in this way. But that just didn't work for like basic card game. This setup of broadcasting everything to everybody doesn't work because how do I show you your cards without showing them to everybody else? Another question is, how do I show your name, for example, on the screen? If I'm broadcasting the same game state to everybody and the clients are all dumb in the sense that they just render and send back input, which is what they do and what I always want them to do, just render and send back input. The game state is all handled in this main central thing, and just broadcast it out. But if I know that your name is Yazeed and your name is Joseph, how do I tell you to display that name? So anyway, just kind of like fun. That's like an example of a fun thing in that game that proved that we needed to kind of rethink some of the way that we rendered and stuff like that. And so we're at this point now where the message, the payload that game server sends out will tell the client essentially which client ID that should be shown to, and the client knows its own ID, so it's just a simple filter of, do I view this or do I not? But it has that data, which seems to work so far for this simple card game, but it's still very much like an experimental. We don't know, at least from my perspective, I don't know what the like upper limit on what we're trying to get into it like is. Like, are we trying to get 3D? I don't think so, but I don't know. We have images and we have sound today, but like, would it be valuable to have video? I don't think so, but again, I don't know. It's just kind of seeing what we need to be in this core feature set to build something interesting. And we're not at the point yet where we know what's interesting beyond just getting the cards to show correctly. So when it's at a point where everything kind of looks nice, whatever that means to me or you or us or whoever, then I would say, okay, we have a card game. It's a real card game. You can see your name, you can get your cards, you can know who won, kind of this basic thing of what I would call a game. To the point where Yazeed and I can sit down and play home games. We can go to homegames.link and just start playing and then be bored as fuck because the game sucks. Like, that's the goal for right now. And so, yeah, basically once we have that game going, I want to just take a look at all of that stuff and make it readable. Because right now it's just magic numbers, and I have comments for myself to remember why I have those things. Jesus Christ. Why I have those things in there, but they're not for people yet. So that's kind of the step after we get something workable here. And then we're famous, and we have a whole bunch of people using this and adding games, and yeah, that's the.
Then we add microtransactions.
Yeah, well, that's the thing at the end of all of this is once we have our giant user base, we just add ads. So it's like just all over the screen, just everywhere. Sell ad space, make millions. Yeah,
the app dies.
Yeah,
it's expected.
Send a video of yourself saying "I love Coca-Cola," and you can play home games.
That's some Black Mirror thing. Oh my god. I still think what would be. Oh, sorry, this is a short digression, but I still think if somebody did a podcast of like, I'm in like freshman year of college as a software engineer or like as a computer science person, and you just keep doing that podcast like as you progress through and out of college and into like a career, I think that'd be a wild podcast actually. Like, I can see that being pretty cool.
You're right. You're totally right. If we had that podcast today for us to go back and listen to, it'd be awesome for us to like learn about ourselves and all that. However, I also would have said so much shit that I regret now that I wouldn't have thought was a problem then. And I'm sure that's the case now. In 5 years, I'll listen to this and be like, what a fucking idiot. Have you seen there's reactions to reaction videos now?
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That I didn't know.
So we should just start reacting to that and have a chain reaction.
There we go. Now, are there reactions to Let's Plays? That's the real question.
I'm sure that exists. That'd be cool if you're like, let's say that we make a game and then we just record someone playing it and then we react to that, you know? And it's like, wow, this fucking idiot that can't even find the menu, or ooh, this fucking, and we're just total assholes because someone didn't like our bad game.
Well, I was gonna ask, like, as new games are gonna come out, if we force people to put like a little YouTube video of like how to play the game, how to set it up, stuff like that, like as they get added to the main repo.
You sound like
not like your private repo,
like an instruction thing.
Yeah, like a little instruction thing.
Yeah. I like that a lot. I have this struggle with recording videos because, like, one of my old jobs, there was we had a dude who was very into creating a video demo of how to do this process, the value of doing this versus another competitor's product or whatever, but basically just guiding them through everything. And then the fact that software changes so quickly made that video outdated in like 3 months. And then you just have this crusty ass video of an old product that doesn't exist anymore, just floating around. And like updating a document is much more easy than updating or creating a new video. So I love the idea of doing videos and creating, you know, maybe potentially entertaining / informative content from that. But just like to convey the process or whatever, I don't know if that process doesn't change, then sure, we can make videos and update them every 2 years or whatever, but I don't know. You know what I mean?
Oh, okay. Yeah, I got you. I understand. Actually, what you said about the crusty old videos, I thought of my current company, and like we have that problem right now.
Yeah. And like, it's a bad look. I don't know. I just, whenever I see someone that has, even if like the color of the header is slightly different in the video than what it is in the real app, I'm just like, man, fuck you for lying to me. Like, this isn't what you're selling me.
False advertising charges. I guess my next question would be like, expected like tech level of somebody who's going to set up and run their home games instance, right? So like right now it's just the GitHub repo. You clone it and then you set it up and you run it. So is that going to be kind of the general gist of like how it's always going to be, or do you have ideas to like make it an exe file for Windows? And I don't actually know what you do for like Mac and Linux.
.app.
Oh, really?
At least on Mac, yeah.
Is that short for Apple or application? Or do they spell Apple? Yeah. Oh my God, you stole the joke right out from under.
I saw it in your face. I knew where it was coming
from. All right. Yeah. So, are we planning on doing that?
I mean, I currently have no plans in the sense that I have like no way to do this or implement this, or I haven't really thought if it's possible or whatever. But yes, you're right. The process today is git clone and then npm install and basically run some node processes. And if you want to update games, you have to git pull, which is not ideal for a normie, and I know that. So I would love something like something that is essentially just like a simple graphical interface wrapping that process, because Git is pretty universal and Node is, you know, like I've had this thing running pretty well, just kind of from the Git pull process on Windows and Mac, but even like looking into something like a Docker container for it or something like that someone can run, but then you have to install Docker, and that's fucking trash. And
it runs terribly on Windows, just so you know.
Yeah, I mean, like I don't even run Docker at work, even though I need it for work, because it just takes up so much memory just being there, and like CPU just being there.
It's actually so we work off of Windows computers, so it's actually more efficient for us to yeah, right. It's actually more efficient for us to have a virtual machine through Vagrant and then set up the Dockers in that virtual machine than it is to just run the Docker images like just straight up. Or I don't know, the more efficient part might be true, or my company's just crazy and that's the decision that they made.
You never know.
It's really like a 50-50 sometimes. And the problem is that if you've never had to make your own Docker container, you have no idea. I don't know. I've never had to make my own Docker container. I just know I'm supposed to run one. But I guess my next question would have been, one of the goals you had when we were originally working on this was like a 60 FPS. Yeah. Always for every client, like regardless of like what's going on, 60 FPS. If I'm not mistaken, we're actually still at the 60 FPS, right?
So that was like a general goal of, I love video games and I love it when they look smooth. So I want that in my video game thing. But then I realized it's not that easy because I can't enforce that. And something important to note is that we have no like roadmap. And at this point, everything is just conversations that Yazeed and I have about what we think we should be doing. But in terms of like a technical plan, we don't have it. So, yeah, I don't know. 60 FPS is what does that mean? If a game doesn't update 60 times in a second, does the socket still send 60 messages of the same game state? It does today because the squisher is like a quick hack. I added a polling basically, so a set interval with 16 milliseconds, and then it just queries game state and sends it out because I basically just needed the game to be updated to the clients that fast, and I just for one game I did that and it worked, and it was like okay, whatever. So today, yes, it polls 60 FPS. But that doesn't mean that the client renders it at 60 FPS, because I can have in JavaScript at least, there's the request animation frame, which will let your client render that data as fast as it can with 60 FPS as a target. But, I mean, it's my target. I don't enforce it, and a client can do whatever the hell it wants, and maybe one day a game wants to update it at 120, and a client can somehow update at 120 and the WebSocket is fast enough for it or whatever, then that should be allowed. Meanwhile, if another person wants to make a game at 30, designed to run at 30, I think they should be allowed to. So, and especially if it's like resource intensive or anything, I doubt a simple 2D casual multiplayer thing gets super crazy. Unless it's like Geometry Wars or something like that, because there's no multiplayer in that and it's insane. Also my favorite game of all time, if anyone wants to like have some point of reference to the people making games, like Geometry Wars is my favorite game of all time. Geometry Wars 2 specifically.
This man has like a high score of all time, right? Are you still in the top? Do you ever check in on that?
I actually just played that game last week when my mom was here visiting. I was kind of just bored chilling and we were talking or whatever, and so I just turned on Geometry Wars because she was like, man, you used to fucking love Geometry Wars, and I was like, still do.
This is the first game we're actually going to release is the sequel to Geometry Wars, Trigonometry Wars.
Well, Geometry Wars 3 did come out and it's hot trash. It's not hot trash. I still played like 80 hours on Steam, but Geometry Wars 2 is the best game of all time.
There it is.
Yep.
That's the deciding factor. Trigonometry Wars. Check it out. Shoot, actually
60 FPS. Geometry
60 FPS. Oh no, actually I was gonna ask you. So that makes sense about like the 60 FPS thing. I didn't think about like if we. I mean, it'd be hilarious, but like do a turn-based game, you really don't need to update 60 times a second for a turn-based game. Like really only need to update when you need to update, I guess.
Yeah. Right. And if you think about like an animation, like an idle animation, is that something where the server tells the client, at this point, I'm referencing this animation, and so on your side, do this movement for this thing that I've already told you how to execute? Or is it the animation is encoded in the payload? It's the frame of from my arm to here to here to here is 3 separate game states, as opposed to my arm is in position A and I have told the client to execute animation Y. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense.
The way that an image is rendered today is there's an initial payload sent from the game server to the client telling it what assets are going to be referenced by this game. So it'll like download all of that stuff and cache it locally, and then it's referenced later in the game frame. So I'm not sending the same image in this giant thing, 100 times. It's just once and then referenced. So maybe that's what we do with animations. But like a game that's not updating looks weird. Like the static image of just that card thing is strange. So if we have some sort of, just something as simple as like a glowing halo around the cards, something that's active should be running at 60 FPS, but like, how does that work? I truly have no idea. So
right. Okay, I see. Well, no, what I meant was like when you said that maybe if like a person making a game wanted to run at like 120 or 30, right? We should be able to deal with that. We don't right now. Like ours is like currently it has to be at 60. But like at the same time, like why would anyone ever be like no 30? That's 30 is really like the optimal. Like who does that? I don't know.
I guess I don't know enough about game development in general to know how that works, and I view that as like a strength when approaching this, because I just know JavaScript, so I don't know how we should do that. But to me, it makes sense that if I'm making a game, I should be able to say that my game updates this often, and you should re-render every time I update, or maybe I want you to just check in on my game state every however many milliseconds and then just get that game state out, and I can configure that interval. So that's me setting a frame rate or a target frame rate, as opposed to me saying, no, my game just updates and I want you to render that as fast as possible. That's a different outlook. But like when you're creating a game, you should be able to do both. And if we're creating the tools, and we should enable them to do both, and currently we don't. And that's just like my naive outlook on FPS in general. And like, I truly know nothing about game development. I've made a single 2D game in my life with another friend of mine, and we used a game engine and it was magic, and I have no idea how it worked. So that's where I'm at.
Yeah. Well, so that's actually what I guess the next question or like next statement is like it's not just that we're making the game for home games. We also have to make the game engine and the hosting and like basically like just like build the whole finished product, right? So how much of it is just we're at the point we have our first game and we have like a bunch of other stuff like in the works. So where would you rate the game versus the engine versus like the hosting or like the connection piece in terms of like doneness or like preparedness to be done? This kind of.
I would say, well, of those 3 components, I really only see myself as responsible for 2 of them. Like, I don't view myself as like the game creator. I mean, I am in the end, and I hope to use it as one, but the goal for me is to like quote finish the engine and then iterate, kind of just do that from there. In terms of games, I think I want to just make games and release them as me, but there is no like deliverable from me for a game, I guess, in my head. And so the link stuff, in terms of infrastructure, I'm responsible for that completely because it's, one instance that's maintained by me. Homegames.link is an optional thing that kind of makes your home games instance linkable. So I'll describe how that works. When you start up a home games instance, it's accessible on a local IP address on that local network. So I can tell someone on that network, my IP address is 192.168.1.2, for example. That person then has to type in that to their URL bar, which if the goal is to make someone who wouldn't touch a controller to play your game, telling them to type in an IP address isn't going to get them to do anything. Like, they're just not. So, homegames.link, when the game server starts up, will get its local IP address, send it off to homegames.link, and then maintain an active WebSocket connection to it, which is, I'm not even sure if we need that, but it just maintains the connection because it's easier for us to know when a client is or is not connected, but just is the connection there or not. But anyway, on that initial startup of the game server, it'll tell homegames.link, hey, here's my private IP address. And since that request also contains your public IP address, homegames.link essentially just saves that in a key value mapping for your public IP. So when the next person on your Wi-Fi network connects from that same public IP address, then it just basically redirects them to that private IP that the game server told it about. You don't do anything with that data. It only exists in memory as long as the game server is connected, and you can comment out that homegames.link line in game server. Like, I promise we're not doing anything weird with that. It's an EC2 instance that I made in like 20 minutes. I think homegames.link, the latest commit is still initial commit, because it was just like the first thing that it got it up and working, and it's done, and that's it. So I don't really see anything changing there until we need to add a second instance and scale it if we ever get to that point or whatever. But it's just been up and running for months. And so I would say that's the most done, because it's done. And the game engine, like I said, very much not done. It's in active development in the sense that we just keep slinging code at it, and it changes, and then we move on. And then games, like I said, I don't have like an end goal for that, so I don't see that in the same way that I do for the others. I don't really have an end goal for the engine either, but my end goal is for someone who is a programmer or not a programmer to be like, oh yeah, this is cool, I can use this and build something with it. That's my goal for the engine.
So I missed a lot of that. Like, I got it, I understood what you were saying, but you're not Mike, but I'm not getting your output.
Technical difficulties on our podcast.
Yeah.
So what part specifically did whatever, the TLDR?
No, I know. So the thing is, like, I got all of what you said, but I'm just letting you know that you are cutting out for me, and like, I don't know why. Well, I'm gonna kill my headset for a second, and hopefully that resolves it for me. 1 sec. Hopefully you don't just like pick up the camera's audio in the meantime.
I think it is. That's fine.
Hello?
Hi.
Okay, cool. Can you talk for a little bit?
Yeah, I'm just saying some words over here. You know, I got a hydro flask on the floor. I got water in there.
God, dude, you cut out. I don't know why. So you don't need to repeat it for me, like, because you said the recording caught it, but...
I hope I'm not cutting out. Here, I'm going to stop the recording and play back that last minute.
Okay, kind of weird. So if I miss something and I ask or I just don't know what you said, I'll probably just bring it up. Like,
no
hey, could you repeat that?
I also really tend to ramble and go off on tangents and like forget what I'm
talking about. No, I like that.
Yeah,
well, because so like you said earlier, we have like zero official documentation ever. So in some way, this podcast can act as documentation. We just need someone to transcribe the whole thing so we can easily search. So if anyone
to transcribe it for us.
What we do is we write a natural language processing bot. All right. We stop production on home games. We write that, then come back, and then we go from there. So we have our document writer, and we go.
It'd be easy, actually. I mean, not easy, but it'd be easier than writing a general.
I was being flexing. It'd be easy, you know. Just
well, no, because if like the general NLP thing is like, well, everybody says everything in different ways and means different things. But if it's just two people and it has to learn how two people talk, and like the weirdness in our voices and how we say words, I'm sure that's way easier than.
Oh yeah, for sure. Actually,
solution.
You're right. You're right. Yeah, you are right about that. The other thing too is like it doesn't need to understand or figure out what we're saying. It literally just needs to take what we're saying and then place it into the English dictionary. Like it just needs to guess. So I think the hard part would be like when we stutter or we say like things or my name. That's the other one. I think there's 3 training models. It's like the supervised, the unsupervised, and then I think there's like corrected or something like that. I don't remember. But yeah.
Yeah, I took a machine learning class, and that's about as much as I know as well. So. I took 3 ML classes, and that's
oh no!
It's like no! I keep relearning the same fucking. Where is the library? That's a nice skirt. I like.
Why is it a skirt?
Because falda, I think, or maybe that's dress. No, that's camisa. No, that's shirt. I'm trash. Anyway, I don't. My Duolingo has not been touched in 2 weeks. They sent me a progress report today, and it just said, "Here's your weekly progress report. There is no progress to report." And it says that in the email. It's like, fuck you. I know I'm garbage. Anyway, whatever.
Do you like when like software is kind of snippy with you about things like that?
I really don't like attitude at all in software. It should just be as plain as possible.
Just completely soulless, just like
yeah. You can have like branding and marketing and all that stuff that has a personality, but if your error message, what's the comment the comic where it's like oopsie whoopsie we made a fucky wucky.
Wait, what? Shit. I've never seen that.
Or maybe not a comic. It was something on Reddit, or maybe something I saw, but it was like the. You know how Amazon has like the Dogs of Amazon error page or whatever?
Yeah.
So, yeah. And someone was like, your app broke. I don't like the fact that you're trying to like make some personality, funny, jokey character thing on your error page. So it was a joke of like, I hate the oopsie whoopsie, we made a fucky wucky.
Yeah.
I hate that shit. Like, your error message should tell me the error.
Really? You think you should tell the end user what the error was?
Generally.
Or do you mean that? Go ahead.
You could go full Xbox One with it and give me the fucking like hex code for the like memory dump error.
What do you mean Xbox One? Windows still does that?
Yeah, but it's like the Windows / whatever Microsoft thing. They're just like, oh yeah, give them the memory address. They want that. It's like, no, they just want to know if they should reset their router or restart the computer.
Well, actually, I feel like getting that hex code is actually super helpful because you can just throw it into the computer and see all the other people who got the same message and then how they resolved it. So you don't need to even think about it on your own.
Right, but I think if you're selling a console, for example, like most console users don't have any idea what to do with that information. It's a useless error.
That's true.
Like, yeah, I don't know. You'd be surprised at how much people don't Google shit.
That really is amazing to me though, because I Google stuff all the time.
Yeah, same. Every thought.
I'm like, how do you output a string in JavaScript again? Oh yeah, that's right. Console.log. That's right. There we go. So you were actually the one who told me that the people who made The Witcher were making Cyberpunk. I didn't know that. I just saw Cyberpunk and was like, that's so cool. I wanted to play this game.
It looks great. Like the videos I've seen of that game look great, and I definitely want to play when it comes out.
Yeah, no, I'm super stoked. I'm hesitant to say I'm going to pre-order it because I know that that's a mistake generally, but I want to pre-order it.
Yeah, I was actually just about to call you a dumbass for doing that, and then I thought about the fact that I'm getting Gears of War in 4 days. And
oh shit! I don't know what you just said. I have no idea what you said. Sorry.
No worries. I pre-ordered Gears of War months ago. And,
I know.
Yeah, so I'm getting that in 5 days. So who the fuck am I to tell you anything about pre-ordering?
So, backtracking for a second.
Homegames.io.
Homegames.io.
First time we've mentioned that. 1 hour 53 minutes into this podcast.
You cut out for me. Can you repeat that? Sorry.
No, 1 hour and 53 minutes into the podcast. And,
holy cow!
Keep in mind, I'm editing a bunch of this shit out. So then when someone hears this and they're like, well, I'm at minute 30, which means that they cut out an hour and a half of trash from this.
What is Homegames.io?
Homegames.io is currently a single sentence of text on a blank HTML page that says, "Oh fuck, this website isn't real" or something. It's basically just a link. You want my outlook on the different
No, that's fine. I like that you just explain what it is right now. Like in the exact
What do you
moment,
mean in general?
you're like, it's a website, just plain HTML. Says this on there. No.
That's what it is. It's super basic.
All right, so I have to get going. So
Oh my god.
I'm sorry.
We just hit hour 2. Let's go for 4. Let's go for 9.
Go for 9 hours.
Yeah.
That's just hanging out for 9 hours. I guess so. I wanted to do like closing questions, just like the bog standard, like tabs or space, Joseph, go. Like a lightning round of questions.
This is the shit where I like don't feel like a programmer. I hit the tab key and it creates 4 spaces. Take that answer for whatever
What?
you want.
That is true. I actually know that because when I work in the repo, it's all space.
Yeah, I guess spaces is my answer. Yeah, spaces.
All right, favorite language to program in?
Ooh, that's interesting. JavaScript for personal projects and Python for more scripty and data type stuff.
All right. Last thing. Is it for int I equals 0? I must be less than whatever. I plus plus or plus plus I?
Depends on what you're trying to do there, bud. Do you want to increment the number before or after you finish the loop iteration and blah, 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 blah. It's just what you wanted to do.
That's a good point. You know, actually, I don't think professionally I've ever done plus plus I yet.
No, because what would that be? Wait, okay. For int I equals 0, I is less than 10, plus plus I, so then I increment, I start at 1, right? That's...
Yeah,
that's...
You start at 1, and you end at 9, so it's just one less incrementation. One less loop through.
Yeah, but your coworkers hate you because that's the way that you decided to start at 1 instead of saying for int I is 1. You fucking asshole.
And then last question, a SQL database or no SQL database?
Depends. If you're doing something real, SQL database. Being able to like control your data is important, and being able to like know that you have a schema that your data abides to, and that you can build indexes consistently and kind of know that they'll work because your schema is followed because there's a schema. And that consistency is important when you have a lot of data. But if I'm just building like a not shitty, but whatever, something that doesn't need to be super intensive on data, like you just basically need to store, like homegames.link is a perfect example. That's essentially a NoSQL data store. It's just a giant in-memory JSON object, or just object because it's JavaScript. So
I like
really
that answer.
Dictionary is a NoSQL data store, and I use that when I don't need to store much data and it doesn't have complex relationships with itself.
That makes sense. I like it.
Do I get the job?
No,
What's the
unfortunately.
salary? What the fuck?
We already went over the salary. It's $0. Now, do you get the job? Unfortunately, you already have it. Actually, this is no job. This is just for fun. Yet.
Yeah.
And then one day we'll be able to pay people. Yeah, one day we'll hate this just like everything else.
Yeah, it happens.
We'll
grow to hate each other, and it'll be fantastic.
No. If we do grow to hate each other, I really want to after that you're stuck with me in your wedding pictures.
Oh yeah, by the way, Yazeed's gonna be the best man at my wedding.
Oh yeah, that's
I'm getting
important.
married in a couple years.
Hey, did we ever say our names? Like, I'm Yazeed. That's Joseph.
Welcome to the Home Games Patch Notes podcast. This is episode 0. I'm Joseph. This is Yazeed. I'm getting married in about a year and a half to the woman that was speaking about an hour and a half ago. Her name is Senovia. Thanks for listening
Which
to
we
the
weren't
Home
gonna
Games
mention.
Podcast.
All right. We can cut the recording.